Who gonna turn down $50 million? Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right.
If you're the kind of person who enjoys sharp, no-holds-barred satire, the type of comedy that makes you laugh while also making your skin crawl, then the name Katt Williams is probably already familiar to you. He's one of the few voices in Hollywood brave enough to call things as they are, unfiltered and unapologetic. But this time, Katt wasn't stepping onto a stage to make people laugh. Instead, he sat down for an interview on the Club Shay Shay podcast with Shannon Sharpe, not to entertain, but to expose what he believes is a powerful system quietly pulling the strings across the entertainment world. Right out the gate, Katt stunned the audience with a bombshell revelation.
Who gonna turn down $50 million? Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right.
This judge is throwing out 1 count of sexual battery by restraint against Harvey Weinstein. I mean, that effectively reduces his 11-count sex crime indictment that he's facing here in the city of Los Angeles to a 10-count indictment.
Harvey Weinstein, once the kingmaker of Hollywood and now a fallen figure mired in abuse scandals, had apparently offered Katt $50 million in exchange for something unthinkable. What's crazier is that the offer was made right in front of Katt's own agent. No discretion, no shame. Katt never disclosed exactly what was asked of him, but the look in his eyes when telling the story said more than words ever could. Calm and cold, he simply said, "I'm not selling my soul, man." Maybe that's why, despite being one of the most iconic stand-up comedians of his generation, Katt has never had a Netflix special. During the same interview, he didn't hold back from naming names: Kevin Hart, Steve Harvey, Cedric the Entertainer. According to Katt, these men weren't powerful figures, they were safe faces, strategically placed by Hollywood to keep things under control. With a mix of sharp sarcasm and cold facts, Katt laid it out. They don't have power. They're just tools. By this point, it was clear that Katt wasn't just venting like a bitter comic. He had become a storyteller on a mission to speak out for the real talent being silenced simply because they refused to play by the rules.
You don't get that back.
Are you saying what I think you're saying?
No, I'm saying what I'm saying. You don't get that back. You come into this world as a man one time. You give up that right for anything, for fear of being hurt, fear of somebody doing something, for wanting to gain something. When you give up that man card right.
To most people, Terrence Howard is remembered as a commanding and complex figure, thanks to his portrayal of Lucius Lyon in the hit TV series Empire. But beyond the screen, behind the suits, the smooth voice, and the polished Hollywood image, lies a story that sounds almost too bizarre to be true. Unless it came from Terrence himself, you'd think it was a sci-fi script. When Terrence sat down on the PBD podcast, it wasn't to reminisce about his acting career or promote his next project. Instead, he dropped something that left listeners stunned. He revealed that he had developed an entirely new branch of mathematics, a coding system, a model that, according to him, could reshape our understanding of the universe. And he didn't stop there. Terrence claimed he had filed for a patent, using his own name, data, formulas, and supporting documentation.
It was all legit, he said.
But what happened next was even more shocking. Terrence alleged that tech giants, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and even Sony, began incorporating his mathematical framework into their systems without paying him a dime. At first, it sounded like the kind of story that would get laughed off. That is, until he pulled out the receipts, the actual patent, the registration numbers, the names, and detailed documents to back it all up. When Shannon Sharpe turned to Katt Williams for a reaction, Katt didn't hesitate. He nodded and said, "Yeah, they stole it. They knew who he was." After Empire, Terrence Howard's name started to disappear from Hollywood's radar. No leading roles, no new contracts. And as always, the media rushed in with their own version of events. He's too difficult. He's paranoid. He's unstable. But what if that wasn't true? What if Hollywood didn't push him out because he was problematic, but because he knew too much? There's even a rumor that at one point, Terrence was working on a documentary to explain his mathematical discoveries. But then out of nowhere, the whole thing vanished. Investors backed out. The entire project was shut down overnight. Oddly enough, not long after, a major tech company announced a new algorithm that sounded eerily similar to Terrence's theories. In another interview, Terrence offered a chilling thought. Hollywood doesn't want smart people. They want obedient ones. And maybe, just maybe, that's the coldest truth you'll hear today. So, what do you really know about Kevin Hart? He's everywhere. Hollywood blockbusters, top-rated talk shows, and polished stand-up specials. Kevin Hart has become the ultimate mainstream brand. Family-friendly, safe, marketable to every demographic. But in Katt Williams' eyes, Kevin's story isn't one of struggle and grind. He's not a self-made success. He's a product, a manufactured figure, grown and groomed in Hollywood's greenhouse. On that same explosive Club Shay Shay interview, Katt went straight for the image Kevin had spent years building. Have you ever seen a real, sold-out Kevin Hart show? He asked. Like a real one? People lining up down the block, scalpers outside? Then he answered himself, because I haven't. The comment hit hard, a direct shot at the carefully curated persona Kevin has maintained in the public eye. But Katt wasn't done. He kept going, his voice layered with disbelief. This dude got his own sitcom during his first year in LA? That's not normal. That's a setup. He called it what it was, a fast-tracked career, engineered by a media machine, built for mass appeal. A red carpet rolled out while other comedians had to hustle for decades just to get a glimpse of that kind of spotlight. For Kevin, the doors weren't kicked down. They were opened wide from the start. Then came the controversy that set the comedy world on fire, Kevin Hart wearing a dress on Saturday Night Live. Some shrugged it off as harmless fun, but legends like Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock weren't having it. They saw it as part of a troubling pattern in Hollywood, a long-running effort to emasculate black men under the guise of comedy. There's even a biting backstage anecdote floating around. When Kevin walked on stage to accept a major award, someone backstage whispered, he just got handed the comedy Oscar by the same folks who built him. To be fair, Kevin Hart is talented. Nobody denies that. But according to Katt, that talent didn't fight its way up from the bottom. It was scouted, molded, and packaged. Kevin didn't climb the ladder. He took the VIP elevator. Hollywood. It sparkles like diamonds, but some of its darkest truths only surface when insiders finally decide to speak out. One of the most chilling accounts came from Terrence Howard himself, the man who once ruled primetime television. But what he shared had nothing to do with acting, scripts, or studio lights. It was about power, control, and the kind of fear that doesn't show up on camera. Terrence recalled being invited to the private home of music mogul Sean Diddy Combs. There was no big party, no crowd, no fanfare. Just an invitation and an energy that immediately fell off. Puffy just stared at me, Terrence said. Didn't say a word. No crew, no friends. I started to feel uncomfortable. Then came the twist. His longtime assistant leaned over and whispered, "He's trying to set you up." That was enough. Terrence got up and left the house. And not long after that night, he quietly exited Hollywood, too. Stories about these kinds of elite gatherings have swirled around the industry for years. Private parties where the real invitation isn't written on paper, but implied through expectation. Places where hidden cameras might be tucked behind the artwork, where saying no could cost you a role or your entire career. Katt Williams didn't tiptoe around the topic either. He put it bluntly, refuse a kiss? You lose the contract. Refuse to wear a dress? You lose your spot. This isn't just about roles or money. According to both Katt and Terrence, the price of staying in the Hollywood game might just be your self-respect, your identity, maybe even your manhood. And by the time you hear all this, it's hard not to pause and wonder, are the flashing lights on Oscar night really worth what goes down when the cameras turn off? Because once you trade away your principles for a paycheck, what are you even performing for? If Kevin Hart is the poster child for a carefully built, Hollywood-approved comedian, then Steve Harvey and Cedric the Entertainer are seen as the lovable, father figure types, wholesome, familiar, trusted faces of Black entertainment. But in Katt Williams' view, that image wasn't earned. It was borrowed, or worse, stolen. In one of his most raw and unfiltered interviews, Katt openly accused Steve Harvey of copying the entire setup of the sitcom Hanging with Mr. Cooper. Same quirky school setting, same flashy suits, even the theme music sounded suspiciously similar. And that backstory about Steve sleeping in his car to chase his comedy dreams? Katt sneered at it. "That's just a sob story made up to sell books," he said. Then came Cedric.
We found out he can't sing, can't dance, and doesn't
He said
write
he doing an album.
jokes. The world doesn't think that, sir. I have 12 comedy specials. He has 4 specials that are not available on Netflix or Tubi.
Katt went further, claiming Cedric had straight up stolen one of his most iconic jokes, first performed by Katt on Comic View, and repackaged it as his own in the exact same year. Now, joke stealing isn't new in comedy. But here's the kicker. Cedric was celebrated, elevated to legend status, on material that, according to Katt, wasn't even his. There's even a rumor behind the scenes that Netflix turned down 4 of Cedric's specials. Not because they were too edgy or offensive, but because they simply weren't strong enough. No unique voice, no spark. And to this day, none of them have surfaced, not even on free platforms like Tubi. Katt laughed bitterly. For comedy specials. Not one on Netflix or YouTube Premium. Kinda strange, huh? But at the end of the day, this isn't just about stolen jokes or copied formats. It's about the frustration of a real artist watching others rise on the back of borrowed effort. When your art is your blood, sweat, and soul, seeing someone else where the crown you forged is a pain no punchline can soften. When Katt Williams speaks, people laugh. When Terrence Howard talks, people lean in. But when they start telling the truth about Hollywood, they're called dangerous, rebellious, unhinged, even crazy.